I wasn't always this desperate. Just a few months ago, my life in the city was something I had worked hard to build. A steady job at a marketing agency, a compact but cozy apartment, and a sense of independence I wore like armor. At 28, I felt like I was finally becoming the woman I had always envisioned. Bills were paid on time, and my weekends were filled with coffee dates, streaming marathons, and the occasional glass of wine by my window. Then came the layoffs. Cold Monday morning, an email, and just like that, my job was gone. No severance, no warning. Just a meeting that ended with, "We wish you the best." I remember sitting in the stairwell of the office building, watching the city pulse around me while inside I unraveled in silence. I applied everywhere. Each rejection chipped away at my confidence. I tried to stretch my savings, skipping meals, pawning off the little luxuries I once took pride in. Rent loomed large like a dark cloud. My landlord, Mr. Karan, remained distant but firm. He wasn't unkind, but he wasn't forgiving either. His notices came on time, printed and taped neatly to my door. Second notice, payment due. Karan was in his late 30s, well-dressed, composed, and always polite. He managed 3 buildings in our block and lived alone on the top floor of this one. We never interacted beyond monthly rent exchanges, though I often sensed something unreadable in his gaze. Not judgment, not sympathy, just observation. I began selling my furniture, canceling internet, skipping phone bills. The apartment grew emptier, colder. The silence that once felt peaceful now scraped against my nerves. I stopped opening the ID blinds. 3 weeks passed without rent. That's when he knocked. I opened the door to find him standing there with his usual calm, holding another notice. But this time his voice softened. "You've been here nearly 2 years. You've always paid on time. What's going on?" I wanted to lie, say the money was coming soon, but the exhaustion broke me. "I lost my job," I said, voice brittle. "I'm trying. I just need more time." He nodded slowly. "I understand. But I can't keep you here rent-free forever." I nodded too, unable to argue. Shame pooled in my stomach. As he left, he paused. "Come upstairs sometime, we can talk. Maybe figure something out." I didn't know what that meant, but something in his tone lingered, an offer, cloaked in ambiguity. I closed the door, behind him, leaning against it as panic swelled inside me. I wasn't just losing a home. I was standing at the edge of a line I never imagined crossing. And I was starting to wonder how far I was willing to go to survive. I didn't go upstairs immediately. Days passed, and Karan's suggestion echoed in my mind like a quiet drumbeat. Every time I walked past the stairwell leading to his floor, I felt the weight of his words press down on me. "We can talk, maybe figure something out." What did he mean? A new payment plan? A referral for a job, or something else? My fridge was nearly empty. I was living on instant noodles and borrowed time. Even my body felt different. Tired, frail, dulled by hunger and hopelessness. By the 5th night, my pride surrendered to necessity. I climbed the stairs to his apartment, heart thudding louder with each step. I had no plan, no expectations, just a glimmer of hope that maybe he'd show me some mercy. His door opened before I knocked. He had been waiting. The apartment was surprisingly tasteful. Sleek lines, warm lighting, a subtle scent of sandalwood. Karan offered me tea, which I declined. I was too nervous to sit, but he gestured gently toward the sofa. "You look thinner," he said, not unkindly. "Are you eating at all?" I tried to smile. "Not much." He sighed, folding his hands. "I don't want to evict you, but rules are rules. I have others depending on me, too." "I know," I whispered. Silence settled between us, long and uneasy. "There might be another way," he said slowly. "Something more personal." I stiffened. There it was, the thing I didn't want named. "I'm not suggesting anything crude," he added quickly, reading my expression. But we're adults. You're in a difficult place. I can help you stay, if you help me not feel so alone. The words weren't vulgar, but the implication was clear. I wanted to leave, to run. But where would I go? To what? My silence was my answer. He didn't press. I'll give you time to think about it, he said, standing. No pressure. But this offer won't last forever. I went back downstairs numb. My room felt smaller now, as if the walls were waiting for my decision. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling, imagining every possible outcome. None felt right. None felt fair. The next evening, I returned. Karan didn't ask for confirmation. He simply welcomed me in. We didn't talk about terms. There were no contracts, no verbal agreements, just an understanding, quiet and potent. He became warmer, attentive. He asked about my dreams, my family. Sometimes he'd bring me food without comment. Other times, he'd sit beside me in silence, offering the kind of company that feels like safety. I told myself it was temporary, a survival tactic. But part of me, lonely and tired, started to confuse necessity with affection. And as the days blurred into weeks, I wondered if I was still in control, or if I'd already given too much away. Karan became a fixture in my life. What began as an arrangement rooted in desperation started to feel oddly comforting. He brought me groceries without being asked. He'd surprise me with little gifts, a scarf, a book I mentioned once, even my favorite pastries. His gestures, small but thoughtful, chipped away at my defenses. He never made demands. He never used explicit language. It was all implied, and the subtlety made it feel less transactional, more like companionship. Soon, I started spending more time in his apartment than in mine. His space was warm and inviting, a contrast to the emptiness below. He cooked dinner most evenings, pouring wine as we talked for hours, about life, our childhoods, even past heartbreaks. He listened like he cared, and maybe, in his own way, he did. I began to believe there was something real between us. His eyes lingered longer. His touch grew gentler. The way he looked at me after dinner, when the lights were low and the world outside quieted, made me feel seen in a way I hadn't in years. But reality has a way of leaking in through the cracks. One morning, I woke early and went upstairs to surprise him with coffee. His door was unlocked, which was unusual. I stepped inside quietly, smiling to myself. That's when I heard his voice, low, distant, and not meant for me. He was on the phone. "She's just a tenant," he said, chuckling, "doing me a favor, while she figures her life out." The words hit harder than I expected. I froze, my body rigid as my heart sank. "Yeah, I'll sort her out soon." "She's not a problem," he added, "just keeping her close until she gets back on her feet." I backed out quietly, coffee trembling in my hands. He never saw me. For the rest of the day, I said nothing. I smiled. I laughed when he told a TI joke. I even sat beside him during dinner, pretending I hadn't heard a thing. But inside, something had cracked. Later that night, I confronted him. Not directly. I wasn't ready for that. Instead, I asked casually, "What are we, Karen?" He blinked. "What do you mean?" "Us? This arrangement? Has it become more?" He hesitated, then gave me a carefully measured smile. "I care about you. You're special to me. But let's not rush to define things, all right? Let's just enjoy what we have." It was the kind of answer that sounds loving if you want it to. And for a moment, I let myself believe it. But that night, as I lay in his bed with his arm draped over me like a borrowed coat, I realized the truth. I wasn't his partner. I was his placeholder. And slowly, I began to feel like a stranger, in a space that once felt like refuge. The illusion didn't shatter all at once. It fractured slowly, through small moments, uneasy glances, and words that no longer felt warm. I stayed with Karan, but the comfort was gone. Every gesture, every touch, now felt rehearsed, as though he were following a script he'd used before. I'd once mistaken kindness for affection, generosity for love. But now every smile he gave seemed hollow. He didn't change. I did. I began to notice things. Other women's names flashing on his phone, always silenced. Excuses about late night calls, a lipstick stain on his collar that wasn't mine. When I asked questions, he brushed them off with charm, saying I was overthinking, too emotional, or just tired. But I wasn't tired. I was waking up. What hurt most wasn't the betrayal itself, but how easily I'd let it happen. I had traded my independence for temporary shelter. I had accepted comfort over clarity, choosing to believe I mattered, when in reality, I was just convenient. One evening, while folding laundry in his room, I found a small envelope tucked in his drawer. It was a lease application for my apartment. My name had been scratched out. Another woman's name filled the space, written in his clean, practiced handwriting. He was replacing me. I sat on the edge of the bed, fingers trembling, heart thudding so loud it drowned out the quiet of the room. The truth wasn't just about betrayal. It was about being discarded like something used and forgotten. I left before he returned. I didn't yell. I didn't write a dramatic letter or confront him with teary eyes. I packed the little I had, left and walked out with the weight of my mistakes, but also with something I hadn't felt in months: resolve. I moved into a women's shelter that night. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. My choice, my space, and most importantly, my restart. Days turned into weeks. I found part-time work at a local cafe, then freelance gigs through an online platform. Each step was small but mine. I learned to live with less, and eventually, to live with myself again. Sometimes I still see Karan's building when I walk past that part of the city, but I never look up. He offered me a hand when I was drowning, but it came with invisible strings. And I, in my fear, allowed those strings to tangle around my worth. Now I walk without strings. This isn't a love story in the traditional sense. There was romance, yes. Desire, certainly. But love? Love is honest. Love is safe. And most of all, love doesn't come with conditions hidden beneath warm smiles. I learned that the hard way, but I learned. And that's where my true story begins.